I usually I try and play what's obviously needed, you know, and I like if I'm in a playing a gig and there's a crowd, and and I can feel that the song's maybe just a little bit draggy or it's just not quite happening enough. Sometimes I'll just like add a little bit more staccato to the playing and get it a little bit more groovy, and I dig it when I can see that it's working. You know, like often the guys, you know, the singer's banging at it and everyone's going, and then I'm like sometimes suss it out and okay, maybe if I just do play it like this, it'll just bring it up. Or so that's just like one scenario, I suppose. But I just try to make it feel as good or implement the emotion as much as possible with the way I play, with different techniques and stuff. Like obviously you don't want to you can't just play like a note. You know, you gotta bring the note in a certain way, and there's so many different ways to bring a note in. It's like a hold this hand. This is the magic hand, I suppose. Cool. My name's Quintin Askus, and I currently play with Watershed, and I also play a lot sometimes with my buddy Justin Sarau and a few other guys, and you know we just whatever comes generally. But also jamming a few gigs with my buddy Howie Gombrink, which is quite cool. We get to let loose a little bit. The guy's awesome drummer, as most of us know about him. He's like an incredible musician. He plays so many different instruments. And it was a weird one. I actually remember saying as a kid that I would never be a bass player, and because my dad was a bass player, and I dig music. Not that I didn't want to play bass because my dad was a bass player, because I really dug the thought of playing guitar, you know, and I was quite vain at the time as well, I suppose. You know, eventually, basically, started studying guitar. And then my dad got me a guitar and everything. And at the college that I was studying at, there were no bass players. Well, there were like 3, and there were like 59 guitarists. So I had lots of nice bass guitars at my disposal to use, you know. So I brought one to college one day, and then I started helping out ensembles and stuff because I could, by looking at my father playing all the years, I could almost just pick up the bass and almost understand how a bass is supposed to be played in a way, I suppose. And then eventually they asked me if I could study bass as well. And then apologies to my guitar teacher because I lost interest almost immediately. And I failed guitar. And I did pretty well with the bass. And then, yeah, and that's pretty much how it got started. And then a couple of buddies of mine, they started a band and they needed a bass player, and then they came up to me and they're like, "Hey man, let's play some music, but we want you to play bass." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And then that's the genesis of it all, I suppose. Yes, you know, it's so weird. Like I don't generally stick to artists as such, but I mean, there's a few things I like currently listening to a guy named Anderson Puck, which is insane. I mean, he's got like. It's like pretty gangster R&B vibes, but I mean, there's some grooves in there, like very P-bass type stuff, and very, very groovy music. Just, you know, very interesting and quite modern take on hip-hop, sort of R&B, jazz. It's quite progressive, which is quite cool. And that's currently what I'm listening to now. Obviously, I love The Weeknd. Which is more of the sort of pop side that I dig, you know. Like I've been listening to this old album. I mean, it must be made in the 80s or something, from Paul Young. It's got the bass player, as a lot of us know, is Peter Palladino, and it's a lot of fretless lines, and it's just beautiful music, you know. And it's not always, when I listen to it, it's not always just about his bass playing. It's just about the beautiful sound that he makes. It's like almost not a bass guitar, but it's beautiful, and his music that he produces is just amazing, and it's actually, I think, because of him, that album became what it is it became such a hit, and that's just something I've been appreciating in these recent times. You know, I don't really like sit down and play songs. It's, you know, like I usually, if I pick up my bass, I just fiddle around with it at home or whatever. Like I've been digging like a weekend special type thing because it's just a fun little tune to play at home, and some Peter Palladino stuff, I suppose. Not that I can nail it that well, but I try. But it keeps me entertained at home or whatever. But I mean, yes, yes. So anything that's really just got a funky vibe, and I just love digging into, like that's I get a lot of enjoyment out of that, and just sitting in the pocket, like, well, try to at least, but I feel like I sit in the pocket sometimes. Obviously, a big influence in my life, obviously my dad and my uncle being such, when I was young, seeing them play, and then and growing up and seeing them play and being like, oh, and only later on even realizing how good they actually are, which is really cool. They're a big influence, but I mean, there's still people. I mean, Concord, I mean, was for me, when I watched the workshop of him when I was quite starting bass, and showing you the chord, how to use chords, kind of thing, and just using feel, and just so humble, and so peaceful and approachable. The guy's got a lot of love in him, and I've always loved Concord. It's like he's like my idol bass player, if you want to call it that. I mean, I've been surrounded by a lot of musicians my whole musical career. I mean, and it's not only bass players that influence me. It's actually, I find I get influenced more by other musicians that I play with. Playing with brass guys, and just the really like quality musicians, and it's incredible how much you learn from when you're playing with all these different people, and it's like a language, and you speak, and then you get a little bit of that, and you can speak a little bit more afterwards, type of thing. It's incredible, and that's, I would say, is my main influences, playing with a whole bunch of different people. Yeah, look, I keep it as simple as it can get. I mean, I just believe in having a really good cable and rocking up to a gig with your own cable, especially as a bass player, because that's pretty much all that's between you and the amp. Well, for me, it is, and so I've got a custom made with the Neutrik heads and stuff like that, a very good quality cable, and then I use a P bass, and I plug into whatever's there usually, but my preference would be Mark bass. I mean, that's for me. It's got a warmth to it. It's the cabinets are just work. It never lets me down. I've been. I don't want to mention other brands, but I mean, I get let down sometimes by these big brands and stuff. But Mark bass just always kicks for me, and there's other great bands out there. I mean, I don't mind rocking up to a gig and there's an Aguilar there, or there's an Ampeg most of the time. That generally work well sometimes, otherwise, but depends what number band you are of the day, I suppose. Depends. But that's, and a guitar stand, and then that's about it. And a clip-on tuner. I use a Snark, and that thing. I just make sure I have a good quality bass that stays in tune, and tune before the show, because they don't work during the show, and yeah, and then that's basically all I'd use. I've tried other effects. I mean, I was into the octave pedal type thing, and the fuzz. It lasted about a month, just because I just, especially the music I play, I just find it never really worked. So it's cool to mess around with it at home or whatever, but I end up just plugging it straight into the amp, and just trying to. And what I love about the P bass is that it's flat EQ most of the time, so you don't have to do anything. So when I get to a gig and there's another band and the bass player wants to use the amp or another bass player, and I'm like, go ahead, I know exactly what my setting is, and it's simple as that. And it's just, that's what I love, is simplicity.